Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Nickelodeon.
My grandmother gave my nephew a spoon yesterday, and he started banging on the trash can, and I instantly banging on
The
a
trash
trash
can.
can. What is it?
I don't know.
Strumming on a
Na-na-na-na-na-na.
street light,
Yeah.
or strumming on my maybe it's banging on
Strumming on a. I don't know.
something on a street
There is
light.
something on a streetlight.
Strumming on my banjo. One little voice keeps calling me, calling me.
Oh my gosh. Nostalgia. I love it.
I guess we'll do intro music.
Meow, 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 meow.
I'm also going to apologize for my voice today because allergies have been kicking my booty.
Yeah, allergies made me have a bloody nose earlier.
I've had to remove my contacts multiple times.
I want to remove my eyeballs and put them in water.
Oh my god!
And then flush out my eye sockets
Jacoby
and then put them back in.
He rubbed his eyes so bad that like one of his eyes was like red
Swollen.
and puffy. Yeah, I feel so bad for the kid.
What a great intro.
Just talking over all the music. Who cares? Anyway, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is where you are. You are listening to Adventures in Vanderland, and I am Vanessa Mans at Mind of Vans on Instagram and other social medias. Come check me out. And I have my lovely co-host here.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sylvia from Maiden of the Forest Tarot. That is Maiden of the Forest Tarot with underscores in between each word, so you know what you're reading.
I forgot
And that's
the dots. I forgot the dots again. Oh,
and that's on Instagram and TikTok. TikTok's a little different with the spacing.
Yeah. I guess that's why I don't care anymore. People will eventually find me if they really want to. Hopefully you're listening to this on YouTube or watching on YouTube, or you're on Spotify, and I'm pretty sure all my handles are on there anyway. Yay, moving on. I think we need to
Disclaimer time.
Yeah.
Folks, I know we laugh a lot, we like to joke a lot. However, this is going to be kind of a sensitive topic, okay? So we're going to have a little bit of some notes of sexual violence, murder.
Yeah, it's going to get...
So this is your disclaimer, okay? So if this is the stuff that makes you uncomfortable, this episode might not be for you, and that's okay, but we're going to be talking about very sensitive topics, and yes, Disney is honestly still involved.
Yeah. We're getting into the dark side of Disney today.
I'm so mad at you for the second one, Disney. We're going to get into that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, let's start from the top. I think
Pocahontas.
Pocahontas.
That's not even her name.
Nope, it's not. Okay, wait. Before we go into facts, let's rewind, because I think it was in episode 1 you mentioned that Pocahontas was like one of your princesses that you used to vibe with.
Yeah, and I said I
still
had
kind
to
of
stop because it's so controversial, and I was like, I to be soft and nice, I'm going to go with Moana.
Correct. And I think there's been a few times we really have just kind of glossed over Pocahontas, like in the first few episodes of this show, just because there is so much controversy. And the thing is that she's a real person. She really lived on this earth. She had a life. She did many, many things. And her story is just tragic. And it has ruined, like, learning the actual history has ruined my relationship with the movie that I loved so much as a child. Do you want to talk about that at all? Because like I loved this movie when I was a kid.
When I was a kid, I was obsessed. I had the Pocahontas backpack. You remember the backpack?
I remember the mugs. There were mugs that I think they sold them at Burger King. There were like, you could collect them all. I remember having the Miko one.
Yeah, I have a little Miko stuffy, and I was just like, I was obsessed with Pocahontas. I was also obsessed with Ariel, but that was for a whole other reason. But with Pocahontas, it, like, even as an adult, if I were to take that movie for what it is and not for the actual facts,
that's a beautiful movie.
It's a beautiful movie.
The colors, the soundtrack. Girl, wait,
even just how her hair flowed.
As a child, me running around with a towel on my head, I can paint with all the colors.
The music, especially, like, even at some point, the animation looked watercolored. It
Oh,
was
yeah. I remember having
gorgeous.
the watercolor coloring book,
Yes, me too. I did that in my, closet because that was my safe space.
but I did mine at the kitchen table because we didn't bring water everywhere.
I had a little cup.
Cups
Um,
spill.
but yeah, no, I really liked the movie for what it was, but oh my gosh.
But, so I think I mentioned to you also, a couple episodes that, this is about 10 years ago. I was in a US history class, and, I learned a little bit more about the, uh excuse me.
Our
Ding ding.
noses.
I also had a slight burp.
Oh,
I think there's a little fizz in my water. I put a Nun tablet in it
oh,
for extra hydration for my watery eyes for allergies. Moving on.
ding ding.
Ding ding. So yes, it's about 10 years ago or so. I'm in this history class and I learn a few facts about Pocahontas that shifted my perspective. It kind of ruined the movie for me, learning that half the stuff in this movie was completely untrue, falsified, or embellished.
Yeah.
So I wrote a research paper about it, kind of comparing the Disney movie to her actual life. And when we decided to discuss this today, you sent me some information that actually kind of conflicts with some of the information that I've known for the last 10 years as well. So, I mean, we can get into
And that's also proof that, like,
history is
stories
told by the
change.
ones who win.
Whoever is writing, whoever is holding the pen, they're telling a story, and
Mhm.
it's either they're telling the story from their perspective or what they wanted to happen,
Yep.
and a lot of times it's from what they wanted to happen. For example, John Smith
He
definitely
he
wrote
was
what
an
he wanted.
author. I can't
Yeah.
say that.
Ooh, now I can't say it. Oh,
Ding ding.
no. An
So,
author.
yes, like, he came to America, did his thing, went back to England, and then he just penned a bunch of storybooks. He basically could have been Mark Twain. Um,
Mark Twain.
I mean, that's the only other old author guy that I can think of, that writes a lot of fiction, because that's what he did. He wrote a lot of fiction kind of based on some of his adventures, but mostly it was just fictionalized. Um, so I'll go over some of the stuff that I thought I knew, and then we can talk about what we know now.
Okay, perfect.
So I did learn that Pocahontas was not her real name. No, her name was Amuate?
Atatone? Wait,
Amanute.
Amanute.
Sorry.
And then she also had another name that she went by too. It
It was
started with an
a
M,
private name. I think
with
I
just her
got
family.
notes, y'all. I do
I
my
got
notes.
screenshots.
It was I think Modern something. It was something with an N. I thought it was in here, but it might be in one of the other. Got a screenshot. Ding ding.
Matoaka.
Matuaka.
Motoaka.
Yes, and then also, so the name Pocahontas, I in my research from 10 years ago, I saw that it was actually meaning wanton one, I guess because that has some sexual connotations. Has been kind of revamped by historians to mean playful one
Yeah.
or mischievous child.
Or like ill-behaved child.
Correct.
And he would always be like, "Oh, you always have your mother's spirit."
Yeah, and you know what? That didn't upset me as much. It was like, okay, Pocahontas was a nickname, which actually was her mother's name, I found out.
Yeah, it's her mother's name, which is why her father nicknamed her Pocahontas because,
The mother
she
died
always had
giving birth to her,
yeah,
right?
the mother passed away by giving birth to Pocahontas.
Can we talk about the fact that she had mad brothers and sisters also that were never depicted in the movies?
Yeah, because it was her friend, it wasn't her sister that was depicted in the film. But yeah,
Right.
missing siblings.
Right. So the film did not talk about her having other siblings and things. It was like she was an only child. But let's talk about the fact that she was a whole child when this
She was
part of
like
history was actually.
11, maybe even 10 years old.
Yeah, I think I had around 10. I thought it was like 9 or 10. This is saying she was like 11 or 12. Let's just say she was about 10 years old, give or take a year or two. John Smith was 27 when he came here in 1607 at the time this movie is beginning. There was no love story there, y'all. There was no love
No.
story. The whole thing was fake.
There was no love story there. From what I read in the article, it was more of like two of them being I can never say this word.
Like an interpreter,
Interpreters. Like
right?
they were like the voice of their people. And so when they had captured and was John Smith was captured, as we saw in the film, but he was
Mhm.
also captured in real life. And at that point, Pocahontas would go into the tent and she was learning his language and he was kinda learning hers.
Which is actually other another new piece of information because I thought that he was just like cool with the chief. Like I read it as he wasn't captured so much as he, just became friends with the chief and
I mean, but he eventually he
eventually
did.
he did, but
Yeah.
I never got the part about him being captured and then becoming chiefs and or friends with the chief or anything like that. And so like when I rewatched the movie and it's like all of a sudden she just had to listen with her heart and she was able to speak English, I
You're
was
like
like, "Oh, interesting. Let me learn Korean real quick."
yeah, watching that part as an adult, you're like, "Wait, how? How
Right.
did you just do that?" You're like, it's a breath like a breath of fresh wind, and it's like, listen to your heart," and you're like, "My name is Pocahontas," and he's like, "What?" And I'm just like, "Wait, what?
Like
You've
right.
never heard of English your whole entire life, and
Like,
you just listen
you
to your
never seen a
heart, and
pale
now
face
you"
in your entire life. That's what they call them in the movies, y'all.
Yes, they did. They called them
The pale
pale
the pale
skins.
ones, the
The
pale
pale
skin.
ones, yeah.
But anyway, you never this is the first time they've seen these colonizers, and that's you just all of a sudden pick up the language just like that.
Literally in, like, 3 minutes of meeting someone.
Right.
How?
So they didn't show, like, there was this time passage of them learning each other's languages, and we don't even really see John Smith learning any kind of the, it was Algonquin that they speak.
Yeah, and if anything, she taught him the spirituality um, of the land, you
Yeah.
know? Like, she was teaching him how to live within the land and how to embrace the land and understand the spirit of the land. She didn't
Wait,
really teach him
that was another thing that kinda
the
bothered
language.
me, is that when he called her I hate saying this, but called her a savage or said that her people were savages, um, she got offended,
As
which
she should.
she should, but how does she know that that was an offensive term if she just learned English 3 minutes ago? That was it's
Well,
just
didn't they also weren't they also calling the colonizers savages? So she must have known what that meant.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense because, like, they weren't really speaking English.
No, but
I
again,
mean,
she knew
in the
English
song I think it's
somehow.
in the song they were going like they were saying that, but I don't remember them really calling them savages like that
Like,
throughout
around
the
the
movie.
fire?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, like, around the fire, they were like, "Oh, yeah, they're savages." You know, they were, like, doing
It was
their
more
meeting in the first
mm,
one?
maybe they did. Maybe
Mm.
I don't know. But
Yeah, both sides called each other that word.
let's go with it. Maybe I'm misremembering things. I'll take that one. Um, shall we continue?
Let's
What
continue.
which point are we at? There was no relationship with these people. John Smith was friends with the chief.
Now,
They
I
kinda
will
he
say, like, there was a time where he was friends with the chief, like you
Mhm.
said, and there was, like, in the article that I sent you, it was, like, a conflict of whether or not they were trying to assassinate him, and, like, Pocahontas
Right.
trying to warn him, but then they were contemplating, like, well, if the chief was gonna give him, um, recognition for
Right.
something good, why would they assassinate him? So there was,
So,
like again, it's like that
I
he said,
concur.
she said, whoever wrote
So,
the pen or
it's
whoever held
slightly
the
different
pen.
than what I read 10 years ago,
Yeah.
but 10 years ago, it was more so that it was a ritual that was kind of done when somebody was, like, close to the chief or, like, they were kind of initiating him sort of, like, into their tribe type of a thing. And it was a ritual where, they were gonna pretend like they were going to execute him, and, like, if he was a worthy person, someone would intervene and save him, which
Yeah.
supposedly Pocahontas did. And now
But
we're
Pocahontas was also a child, and she wouldn't have been able to be present because
exactly.
of the age.
Exactly, and so now the new information is that it's still a similar story that it was a ritual of, like, inducting him into, like, a new role or something, kind of like this go between a liaison, sort of a role between him and the tribes and the colonizers. Um, I probably should stop saying colonizers.
I mean,
Sorry, Black Panther, like, just stuck that in my head, I guess. But anyway,
I mean, in the
um,
film, that's what they were also
but they're
called.
colonist, technically, I guess. But, anyway, either way, he was supposed to be like this liaison, and that was like what the ritual was. But the new information is that children wouldn't have been to that type of ritual. And Pocahontas, there was no warning that that was going to happen. She was not involved in any way. So that's like the new part of that.
Mhm.
But so there's something similar to those
Now,
stories.
I wanna know for the listeners real quick, like, this is just the research we've done. Again, there's plenty of
Right.
research, so this is just, like, what
But
we personally found and
mhm,
the research that we are doing. Everything we say could also be contradicted with new evidence and new historical
clearly,
findings in, like, a month.
clearly.
Just again, disclaimer.
Disclaimer again. Yeah, and again, like, a lot of this is gonna be our opinions and, like, just the facts that we had available to us.
Yeah,
We are not historians, even though we pretend like we're experts, we're
and some
not.
of this will also be our anger, just saying.
Like, we're not gonna pretend to be unbiased about this.
No.
Okay, so Coco, in the movie in the movie, Pocahontas has no interest in Cocoam. She was about to be, like, arranged to marry him for, like, tribal whatever they
Mhm, and she was wondering if that was the right path
right,
or if
she's
there's something
questioning it,
better and more exciting.
and then she fell for John Smith, which we know was not that was actually
False.
another thing too, going back to Smith and Pocahontas, who was a whole child. I also read that he was kind of like a godfather type of thing to her, and I don't know if that's because of their mutual interpretationship or whatever.
I mean, like, even now this is gonna kinda skip the first movie, but, like, even when she was now I'm not saying the movie, I'm saying real life Pocahontas, when she had gone to
England.
England, right, like,
Mhm.
John kinda was around. John was kinda someone who she would go to kinda, like, get some, like, help or advisement or
Right.
something, besides the other people that were involved, which, we're gonna save for when we get
Let's get
there,
there.
but yeah, I could see that being like a godfather or like an advisor for her.
Right. Okay. So, moving on. Yeah. So Coco, she was conflicted about marrying him, and she asked for advice. She ended up meeting John Smith, falling in love with him. Yada yada yada. Fact is, she actually did marry Coco when she was 14 years old
She
and
did.
had
A
actually
little cocoam.
little Coco. So your article says that there's a little Coco. I did some also other. I read a few other articles that couldn't confirm little Coco.
Can
Just
confirm the son.
yeah, so, like, this is what the disclaimer is, like, there's so many different pieces of, like, information out there. Some say that there was a child because, like, with the native tribes, they do an oral history, and so because there's not any written firsthand accounts from that period, it's hard to confirm what is or isn't true.
Mhm.
A lot of the information that we have is by the,
Uh,
British that
the
or
people that hold the pen.
the colonists who were around, and we know that they fabricated things or, anyway, moving on. So, you wanna
And
talk
in the film, didn't they kill Cocoam in the film?
they did. So, in the film, Kocoum witnesses John Smith and Pocahontas kissing, making out. He gets upset,
He does that.
charges
Ah.
yeah, woo, charges at him, and they start fighting, and
Mhm.
then one of the other soldiers, not soldiers, but the other colonists
Pow
sees
pows.
sees it and unalives Kocoum, shoots him.
Now, now from the article that I had read that I also had given you, it
That
was
there was
true.
just there was an accident is what I understand.
Well, okay, so what I read, and now I don't know exactly, again, disclaimer, we're not sure, right? So, like, what I had read was that after they had traded
Mhm.
Pocahontas for a copper
That's the
pot,
whole
which
thing.
was a trade.
Yeah.
You guys
Okay.
can't, if you guys are listening, you can't see my air quotes. I apologize. But if you're watching, you can see it.
I think most of our things are on videos.
Yeah, most of our
Most
stuff
of
is
our
on
views.
video, so hopefully you're watching. So after the trade, they had killed, and she unknowing never really knew that they killed Cocoam afterwards. But you're saying that you found out that it's an accident,
Well, John Smith being shot or whatever, his injury was an
not
accident.
John Smith, Cocoam.
I might have skipped ahead. because
Because I'm talking about Coco
oh my
Unpack.
gosh, I skipped ahead to when John Smith got shot at the
Oh no,
end. My bad.
this whole thing
So
with Pocahontas,
nope.
and
So yeah,
I was doing
Coco was basically unalived after Pocahontas was taken. So let's talk about the fact that in the movie, Pocahontas just lives her life. She has her fling with John Smith. He ends up having the accident that makes him go back to England
Mhm.
for treatment, and she goes on living her life. That is not what happened.
And then we have Disney's Shame on You, Pocahontas 2. Shame. Shame on you. Shame on your cow. Shame.
Dishonor.
Dishonor. That's what it is. Dishonor. Dishonor on you.
Dishonor
Dishonor
on your
your cow.
I
I'm
love
sorry. I said shame because Game
But
of
no,
Thrones was in my head.
seriously, shame and dishonor, all of it, both of them.
Pocahontas 2 was bad. Like, made
So
me angry.
okay, we're not there yet because I wanna talk about the fact that so my earlier research suggested, and I see that in the article that you gave me,
Okay.
it suggested that, like you were saying, she was traded, and I believed all this time up until recently, I believed that she left voluntarily to go with the British, like, whatever, she went there, she voluntarily converted to Christianity, changed her name to Rebecca.
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 Anyway. Oh, Rebecca. I have a hairpiece that I call Rebecca. Like, we can do some lightheartedness once in a while. Anyway, ADHD. ADHD. Okay, I still have it, guys, even when we're talking about serious things. But yes. So the fact is that she was not, um, she was not taken. I mean, no, she did not leave voluntarily. What it was is that she was taken because things were getting hostile between the colonists and the Pahon tribes.
Mhm.
And what was the guy? I forget the guy's name. Samuel Argall
Yeah.
um, took her and held her for ransom because what they wanted food and shelters and stuff like that. They wanted whatever resources they wanted from the native tribes. They thought that holding Pocahontas hostage was going to um, get them what they wanted, and they ended up. Ugh,
From what I read, they ended up giving them a copper pot and saying it was a fair trade, and then just took her and then was like, "Bye."
right. And then while she was in captivity, she was forced to learn more English, forced to convert, forced to change her name, forced to basically assimilate to British society or the colonist society, whatever they were practicing at the time. Your face.
She was forced into a lot of different things, and unfortunately, she was also forced into physicality type relation.
Oh, she was forced into her marriage as well, correct?
Yes, she was
The
also forced into marriage with, I think,
John
John
Rolfe.
Rolfe, and that was because he was a tobacco, farmer, and he was trying to look good with tobacco farmers and basically parade her around and use her as a puppet, to showboat, and yeah, and he's one of the ones that was forced upon her, because unfortunately, when she got to England, she was forced physically, sexually. And unfortunately, that is a very dark, dark,
Yeah.
truth about Pocahontas, is that it rhymes with grape, and
Yeah.
that's all I wanna actually say
Yeah,
because
because like my blood is actually boiling right
it's
now.
too sensitive, and there's many people that can be triggered by
Yeah.
these words and these actions of words, so I rather not go
Yeah.
too into it.
Let's just go ahead and move on. Um, so that brings us to Pocahontas 2, Journey to a New World.
Yep, that's in Pocahontas. Yep.
Do we need to take a break?
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna have a weird face for the rest of the yep.
Yes. Okay. Weird faces. I feel like we're both like, ugh.
Angry?
Do we need like do like some deep breathing for a second? I'm so
No, I
like,
need to
okay.
punch something.
All right. I'll let you punch me if you want.
No, I don't wanna punch you.
All right. So the second movie opens up with it's winter. John Smith has left. Whatever. She's
The
missing.
rumor of John Smith passing.
Can I bring it light Back to Lightness. That song that she sings at the beginning, like, "Where do I go from here?" That was a dope song. I'm sorry.
Not bad. I appreciated the songs from the first film
Oh,
more, just a little bit more.
I never appreciated that second song, but, like, when because I watched it was it last night that I think I watched the movie? Um, I was like, "I can relate to this," you know?
Yeah, especially if you're not
Like,
sure on
where
like
you're
the path
conflicted. Yeah.
is and like you're unsure and you're like where am I going? Where am I headed?
Right, like, you don't know what to do, what to choose. So, I
Looking for
was
clarity. And you know what's interesting about the second film
mhm,
is it's almost like being around the colony of the new people that came in, it could almost you could almost see her like losing her spirituality a little bit,
mhm,
losing the willow trees messages
mm,
just a little bit, not being able to meditate, not being able to center, to be in the opening of spirituality that she needed for the guidance. And sometimes that does happen to people with spiritual gifts too.
right. But, yeah, and I also kinda something to basically piggyback off of what you said too. I noticed, like, you were talking about how, um, John Rolfe was using Pocahontas to kinda, like, showboat and parade, and, like, their whole marriage was basically a sham, but,
Oh, big sham.
um, the whole thing too is, like, there was a comment that was made by one of the colonists early in that second film where they're like, "Oh, as long as Pocahontas is around, like, things are gonna be fine. Pocahontas would never let, like, war break out or what
Yeah,
have you."
she'll never let that
Like, she
happen.
was the end all be all peacekeeper between the 2 worlds, which is interesting, to say the least. Anyway, so I feel like these people just really used her, and so it's like, what was she that person for them?
They used her and they also used her to help try to convert other people into their way of life, and they made her wear the clothes. They got her out of her traditional clothes. They got her
Mm,
out of her culture. They had her stop speaking her tongue, obviously, because she's not around those people anymore. And they kept her from her family. And, when she wanted to go back to her family, that's when the dinner and on the boat happened,
mhm.
which I'm skipping ahead.
Yeah,
So
we're skipping ahead a little bit. So, the movie sets it up that actually John Rolfe is just getting to the Americas for the first time. He hadn't been there at all. And
mhm.
he's like at the docks and he overhears these women say this. And he's like, "Oh, the great Pocahontas, that must be the chief." And so he makes this
You're so
so
wrong, bucko.
so, being who he is, just made, that assumption, he knows everything, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go give Pocahontas my horse and try to get Pocahontas to come back to England." Ends up putting his foot in his mouth,
In
because
front of her father.
in front of her father, and he's like, "What, so the king doesn't wanna give the horse to Pocahontas? The king doesn't want Pocahontas to go meet him? What are you talking about? You're a liar?" So he has to save face in front of the chief. He ends up taking Pocahontas to England, and this is supposed to be to, try to make peace because the whole thing is that we're under the assumption they make this whole thing where at the end of the first movie when Ratcliffe is the one that shot John Smith, which this was fabricated. This was actually it was an accident. It was an explosion, a gunpowder explosion
Mhm.
that he got hurt from. But in the second movie, it opens up with Ratcliffe talking to the king and saying that, "Oh no, he's making up stories and he's saying that the natives are about to attack and he wants the king to grant him an armada to go attack them first." So he's trying to start a war.
Mhm.
And John Rolfe is supposed to be this peacekeeper, bring the chief back to England to meet with the king and try to have some kind of peace talks or something of that nature, or straighten out the whole story of what happened to John Smith.
Yeah, they're trying to say and show like Pocahontas is actually very civil and she's within the standards. And in that film, he like trains her, dresses her. They even put powder on her to make her
Oh,
lighter. That
that.
made me angry. I have goosebumps right
Oh,
now, making me angry. She's
when
like,
and then
and
he's
she
go and
her
then he
her
says, "Oh, you're so beautiful."
and she
Oh, she's
goes
beautiful when she has the powder on?
and she goes, "Oh, it's called powder." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no, 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 no,
Yes.
no."
Oh my god. I had to stop the
Like
movie at that part.
literal whitewashing.
Actual.
Actual literal whitewashing.
Did my nose just get really I can feel my nose flaring.
And then I like the part though when they tried putting her on heels and she's like, "Yeah, no." And she takes the heels off and she starts dancing
Very
because she's like,
Rapunzel
"There's
of
no
her.
way I'm gonna do this like this."
Oh, but the fact and then also the fact that she was parading around in her underwear, which were long johns. I'm like, she's actually more covered now than she was when you met her in America, but you're embarrassed to see her in her underwear. Ah, the British are weird. Sorry, British listeners.
I didn't say
Ding ding.
anything. Ding ding.
And moving on. Where were we? So now Pocahontas and John Rolfe go to England. He's basically, yeah, making her civilized. Ratcliffe comes up with an idea of this dinner, like at the dinner party where she's supposed to meet the king. He brings a bear in captivity intentionally to, set her off and get her upset because he knows that she's very connected to the animals in nature and would never wanna see a bear in captivity.
Yeah, and she does. She does get upset, and I don't blame her one
Why
second.
wouldn't
And
she?
she's like, and then they're like, "Oh, she's still a savage," and she's like, "You're the savage ones.
It She told
This
them
is
right.
torture." She's like, "This is absolute torture."
She failed to tell them how they were torturing her, but I digress. I digress.
And but here's the thing: in England, real Pocahontas was kind of being tortured. She was torn away from her family,
Absolutely.
and she was under a lot of
I
different
mean,
abuse, and
they
she
put her in
was
these corsets and things, and, like, she was like, if you wanna say that it's
and then
metaphorical.
And then they have the audacity to say that she embraced Western culture, that she was the Native American princess that embraced Western culture. I
There's
am
actually
so angry. I'm getting
another
angry
fact
all
too.
over again.
Radcliffe, I found out, is a real person. This is something I actually just looked up earlier today. He's a real person, but he died in Jamestown. No, and he was not in nearly as bad as what the movie depicted him as. Like, he I mean, people didn't like him because he basically was like forcing them to build him a governor's mansion, even though they were suffering from, like, starvation and illnesses, but besides that, he wasn't as greedy and, like, looking for gold. I actually didn't see any research where they were really looking. I mean, I guess that's kind of the whole point that they came
Mm.
here or whatever, supposedly, but I don't know. History told us that Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, and they failed to mention all the other stuff he did. So I don't know what to trust. I don't know how to trust history books anymore.
Um, so I actually read that at one point he actually stumbled upon some of the islands in the Caribbean first.
I don't think Columbus ever actually came to North America. He was always in the Caribbean.
And that's where my people had issues and did a lot of things to protect themselves against the people that were coming in.
Mhm. Yeah, and then it was the British who took my people and brought them here. So basically, and I think that's important to talk about, is that is why we get so upset, is because although we don't necessarily identify with the Native Americans like Pocahontas or like
There's so many
Native
tribes,
North
yeah.
Americans, I should say, um, the fact is that we both come from cultures that were oh, ding ding. We both come from cultures that were ripped apart, whitewashed, completely erased, were you know what? I mean,
That you know what, it rhymes with a
ab
fruit,
rhymes with a
and
fruit,
then also
ab
enslaved,
abused, tortured, enslaved,
killed
killed.
off,
Uh, I
just
mean, and it still goes on today, which I'm not gonna talk about today. We're talking about 1500s, 1600s, but it's something that I think we can both relate to, uh, in that nature, is that our histories, like, it's hard for us to keep track of our own histories. Like, I couldn't even tell you, like, that at least you know that your Taino, right?
Yeah, my
I
great
couldn't tell you what
grandmother.
tribe I came from.
But the thing is, because Tahino is made of with a collection of different tribes, so I don't know exactly which tribe
It's
she was from, but my father was saying that she is Tahino, and it's just crazy to know the history of just my great grandfathers and my great grandmothers, where my great grandparents came from slavery. The Chinese was brought into Cuba because they didn't want the Africans to revolt, so they thought if they split it up, that would be a good idea, and it's just crazy how my great-grandfather was Chinese and came from slaves, and my great-grandmother was African who also came from slaves, and the colonization that happened there, and just, how it all trickled down to
right.
what's today is just crazy, and we
It's
lose a lot of history from
uh,
where we
and it's
come from.
crazy. I think in the African American like diaspora, a lot of us don't know where we come from. I mean, for 400 years, we were just separated from our families, our tribes, our wherever we came from,
Mhm.
and I mean, packaged like sardines on these ships, thrown overboard if
I
you
feel like
didn't
you
make
guys
it.
were tighter than sardines, unfortunately.
I mean, sardines in chains, by the way.
Yeah, chained
And
down to the floors.
and then just brought here and sold and bartered and beaten and I mean you
Families ripped apart.
the fact that like compare that to we're saying we don't know what is fully accurate here because of the indigenous oral history. At least they got to stay together long enough or far enough that some of that oral history has made it these 4 or 500 years. We lost our oral history, we lost our languages. I mean, we lost each other because, I mean, you got separated from whatever tribe you went like, that you came from, and then during, like, the revolutions, people were just running away, and, I mean, people went from went to Canada or went to, like, West or wherever they went to. You have no idea where you came from, and I think that is, like, one of the saddest things. It's like, for a long time, I had troubles even saying even still, it's hard for me to say that I'm African American. I don't feel connected to anything in Africa. I just except for a skin color, but, like, there's people with different skin colors in Africa too, guys.
And that's something that I feel like some people don't understand when, I refer to Black culture. And
Mhm.
it's because they don't know exactly where from Africa they came from. And so, yes, it's called Black culture.
Yeah.
Yes, it is called Black empowerment. Yes, it is called
With a capital B.
communities for African Americans, but it is Black culture.
Yeah.
And so, and this is going to strike a chord. And I'm sorry if this gets a little political.
I'm bracing myself. Okay, go.
And I apologize for any listeners that this might be whatever, but this I'm gonna say it. Imma say it. There is no country called white, okay?
No.
There's not a country called white. So when people say white power, I'm like, "Okay, so like, okay, white culture, so, French, German,
Mhm.
Germany, Czechoslovakian, Irish. Yeah, you have culture.
You're
You
right.
have culture. It's from wherever your lineage is from is your culture. You might know where you're from, and that's amazing, and you can absolutely embrace your culture, but there is
100%.
nothing, that is called white. There is not a white country. There is
Right.
no country called white. Okay, I'm gonna digress now, okay?
No, but I think, like, it's important to say because, like, I hate when people, like you know what, maybe we just shouldn't even get into it, like, because that's a whole
We're
'nother
trying to
rabbit
level it
hole.
down.
That's but, yeah, we all have different experiences, and, you know what I actually really wanna do is I do wanna take a DNA test because I have been told as from a child, I was told that there is Native American lineage in my blood. I don't
I wouldn't
know.
be surprised.
Oh,
There
absolutely,
is
like
20 I think there's 21 different Caribbean tribes alone,
mhm,
and then there are native to each land, if
and the
you look
thing
at it.
and, my father's side of the family actually came from Virginia. I highly doubt that there wasn't some integration of, like, Native American and African intertwining.
You should, and you should, let me know what comes
Yeah,
up.
I was also told that I do have a white great-grandfather maybe or god I don't know, grandfather, great-grandfather, something, maybe a great-great.
A
which
great great grandpappy.
which kind of explains my last name, and that was, like, when I made that German friend, and, actually, she wasn't German, she lived in Germany, but she's actually Yugoslavian. Um, moving on. Anyway.
We got a
And,
little we
like,
did get a little off
we
topic,
got a
but I
little off
mean,
topic, but
it's
the
in the
fact
show.
is
We
that
know it's in the show.
but she was surprised, she's like, "Oh my gosh, your name is German," and I was like, "Oh, yeah? Is it?" I mean, I was probably owned by one at one point. That was my response to her. I don't think she got it, but, um, anyway. Ding ding?
Did I just block your face with my
No.
water bottle?
No, I was like, maybe I shouldn't have said that on the air, but either way,
Ding ding.
it's okay. Maybe it's fine. Listen, I can joke about it. I can't I mean, it's a serious thing, but history is what it is, and I have to accept the fact that somewhere in my lineage, like, someone was brought over here in a chain, and that's the fact. And so the fact is that slaves took their master's last names. So I'm like, probably a German immigrant that at one point owned someone in my family.
Mm.
Mm. Anywho, or maybe it was my white great great grandfather. I don't know. I have to do history test, DNA
So,
test.
going back to Pocahontas too,
Let's get back to Pocahontas because
I got beef with I cringed when, uh, John Ralph, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, Rolf?
Ralph. I call him.
Ruff.
I call him.
Ruff. Sorry.
I call him Ralph.
Rolf?
I think about Ralph. I maybe
Like
I'm
barf?
basically because that's what he makes me wanna do.
Okay, so, John Barf over here, he was like, "Oh, I'm nothing but a gentleman. You have a gentleman's word. You are not a gentleman, good sir. You're not even a good sir. You are not a gentleman. No, you took advantage. You SA'd
Mhm.
Miss Pocahontas here. Not force her to have a kid, but you basically force a kid upon her, and then you go to a dinner and she gets poisoned, throws up, and dies before she even gets to turn 21, folks.
Yeah. And that was another but that was like a contrary piece of information I had. I don't know why. I don't know if I read this in the past or if I mixed up the movie with the information I had 10 years ago. I thought that she went to the dinner. Um I I read that she was feeling sick and was on the boat to go home and she passed away on the boat going back to America. Um, but you have slightly different information, which is that that dinner that was depicted in, the 2nd movie is where
Mhm.
she just got sick and basically unalived.
Yeah, yeah, so, what I read here was that Pocahontas met up with, John Smith in an outrage, and, she wanted to visit her people again, and she just wanted to visit home. She
Mhm.
wanted to see her father. She wanted to see her people. You are stripped away from your family for so long and having to wear these
How
clothes
long was
and all
she
that
actually
stuff.
in England?
I don't think it's I don't know if it says.
Because, like, the movie makes it seem like it was just a couple of days.
No, it couldn't have been. It couldn't have
I mean,
been. If
like
she was pregnant and had a son for Thomas and had
well,
or
I
had
mean, the movie
Thomas
didn't depict her ever getting married. I mean,
or
the
ever having a
or ever having a
kid,
kid, so there's that, like, I mean,
but
before doing research, I didn't even know that she had a kid. I thought that you know, obviously she had married John Rolfe when they were still in America, went to England together, went to this dinner, was sick, and then on the boat ride home, that's what I thought. She got sick and passed away on the boat. And then John Rolfe and little baby Thomas came back to America and continued planting tobacco or whatever.
yeah, I think it says sometime after the journey, Pocahontas was sent to return home in the spring of 1617. And it says, at the time, Pocahontas was perfectly healthy and in good condition to return, according to accounts by Matachana. However, shortly after having dinner along with John Rolfe and her Argal, she vomited and died. She had not even turned 21 in the time of her death, and despite her family requesting that her body be laid to rest in with her tribe, Rolfe and Argal brought her to Gravesend in England, where she was buried at a church. Her father was heartbroken, and after receiving the news, um, later died with grief a year later.
Yeah, so it seems she was in England. In reality, she was in England for give or take a year. Um, Actually, one of the notes that I have, and this must have been from a different source that I got, says that it just says that she died of illness, possibly pneumonia or dysentery.
Hmm. I could believe dysentery, because like the food and everything, it wasn't the best of
Mhm.
quality, especially upon a ship. If she was eating upon a ship, a lot of times, people would eat like without light because they didn't want to see either the vermin or the bugs or certain things that were all over
And
the food, and the quality of the food and the storage of the food was
let's be
not
honest, the
sanitary.
British, wherever they went, a big part of the um, massive genocides that happened, besides them actually, just choosing to unalive people, was that they got sick because the British brought all kinds of diseases or had all kinds of diseases. Like they were immune to them, but all the native people that to the different lands that they went to got sick and like died in mass.
Yep, and that brings me to something light and funny where, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective 2, where where he sneezes and they're like, "Oh my gosh, disease from white man." Yeah, I love Jim Carrey. Okay, glad we
Uh,
can still have some laughs in this show.
we can still laugh. I think we went over everything with Pocahontas. Let's wrap that up.
Yeah.
Eh,
Again, the second one, knowing what we know,
mhm.
knowing the research that we've dived into, and then watching it, I was
So pissed
so
off.
angry, and now here's the thing, if I didn't know that research, now that's a question, if we didn't know what we knew, would we be able to take the movie for something different?
I mean, I'm thinking about when I watched mind you, these movies came out in
1988?
95 and 98 respectively.
Yeah.
So, I was around 8 to 11 watching these movies. I mean, I just thought they were these brilliant love stories. I feel like it was like one of those things where I'm like, "Oh, yeah, when I get older, I'm gonna fall in love with some guy and maybe learn a new language, maybe travel to." I wanted to go to England. That big chorus number definitely made me wanna go to England a little bit. I don't know.
I mean,
"What
we
a
can s
day
we can
in
still go to
London."
England.
Um,
We can
I'm
still go
I'm
to
a little bit
England.
I'm a little bit mad at the British people right now. Maybe I'll go in a year. Maybe I'll go eventually. I really do wanna go to I wanna travel anyway. I wanna go all around the world. But,
I got some spots in London.
what do you mean?
I have timeshares in different parts of, different countries.
This is news.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I have, like, different hotels in Italy, Sardinia,
When did this happen and
Maldives.
why? And
I
how come
have,
I'm not
hotels in London, I have hotels
what do you
in
mean you have
Cancun,
hotels?
Mexico. Yeah, I have rooms. I'm one of those people that got a timeshare, but it actually serves me very well rather than people complaining about it.
So,
We're
after
doing
this
trips. We're going on trips,
after
girl. We're
this, we're
going
gonna
on
have
trips.
to talk about do you have any in Florida?
No. I'm like, no, not Florida."
Okay, well,
Moving
you
on.
yeah, I'm gonna move on for now. We're gonna definitely stick a pin in this for after we wrap.
Okay.
Cause yeah, if you got hotels and rooms and things, your girl wants to travel for sure.
Same.
Um Okay, what? I've completely lost track of where we were.
It was my investment. Instead of having kids, I wanted to invest in travel, so that's what I did.
Okay,
I'm
well,
very happy about it.
let me see if I can get a babysitter. Let's go travel.
Okay. Just so you know, kids can travel for free and stay there for free up until 18. So if you want to bring Jacoby,
What do
you
you mean I
can.
don't have to buy his plane ticket?
You have to buy the plane ticket, but you don't have to, pay for his stay, especially,
But
like, all inclusives.
why do I wanna go on vacation with a child? That's still work.
I mean, if you want him to learn, like, the
I'm kidding. I'm
pyramids and
kidding. Of course, I
stuff,
wanna go on vacation with my child.
we're gonna move on. We're moving on.
Family vacations are different from girls' trips. That's all I'm
That's
saying.
true. No, that's true. That's true, that's true.
Okay.
Big truth.
Do any of your timeshares come with nannies?
Actually, yes, there is, they have, like a PlayStation area where they have, like, people that do daycare during the day, and they teach them Spanish, have all these really cool, like, activities for the kids lined up, so you could literally have your day with me, like, at the spa, have a massage, go to the pool bar, have
Wait,
a
can we just
nice.
go to the spa that I went to in Queens?
Yeah,
It's
sure.
the Korean spa.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do all of it.
Yay.
We're not
Okay.
limited.
Oh, goodness. All right.
We're free enough.
Free. Free birds.
Free enough.
Free enough. Mm. And we all have free will, surely.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. All right, cool. So I think we covered
I
everything.
think we covered everything, and folks, thank you for listening to a
Wait, did I answer your
heavier,
question
heavier episode.
about what we would think about watching this movie now?
Yeah, you said, you were kind of, like, romanticizing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
thinking it was a
Oh,
romance.
I definitely always wanted to have
Um,
2 guys fighting over me.
I never saw Pocahontas 2 as a kid, so trying to take the information out of my brain and, like, rewatching it in my head, I guess I would've I would've been conflicted. I would've been like, "Pocahontas, like, what are
I
we
really
doing?
wanted to like John Rolfe.
Are we gonna stay with John Smith? Are we gonna be with, John Rolfe?" But, like, I don't know. I feel like if I was Pocahontas, I'd probably go back to John Smith. I'm not gonna
Honestly,
lie,
I
because
I
like, I
like the
don't
fact
wanna
that
be
she didn't.
changed. I don't wanna be changed. I don't wanna have to
I
change to
think
fit someone's
see,
dynamic.
that's the whole thing is I feel like actually, I think that John Smith was the villain,
In
and
Pocahontas too?
in both Pocahontases,
Oh,
and
whoa, we're talking about this now. We are not wrapping up. We are talking about this
rewind,
now.
unwrap that baby. Yeah, I was kinda thinking about it, and like I said, you know, right from the beginning, he went into this world thinking he was gonna claim it for his own. Like, I mean,
But did he? Because he was ordered
he
to.
literally said, like, in his little number, he's like, "It's a land I can claim."
Oh, yeah, then no, that's true.
You know, he was adventurous as was Pocahontas because, like, also that dive she did at the beginning though, like
Oh,
10 for 10, Olympic
mm,
dive,
10.
10 for 10. Um, but yeah, I
Miko, you get a 3.
I think
Miko gets a
he gets like a
3.
-3 for that splash.
Trying to use the
The bird.
trying to use the bird to flap its wings.
But yeah, I mean, like, he instantly was trying to push it seemed to me he was trying to push the British agenda onto her, like, calling her out about and calling her people savages and, everybody's uncivilized. I felt like as much as she was trying to teach him about her tribal ways, I feel like he was like, "Yeah, but this is better."
Because I feel like they really shared it, and, like, even though he was like, "Yeah, savages," and she's like, "I am a savage," and he's like, "Well, not you," and she's like, "So just my people?" And he's like, "Well, no." Like, it just seemed like he, like, had his own little culture shock, and then, like, yeah, he
Okay,
taught her, but, like, she also taught him. I felt like it was kind of an exchange in a way.
sure, let's go with that. But then in the second movie, though,
In the second.
it starts off with him he has already written all these stories, which I don't even think we covered the fact that he did go back to England and wrote a bunch of stories, and because there was, gossip about this Pocahontas or whatever, he used that, and I mean, he used this well after she had died. He embellished the stories, and that's when he started writing about them having a romance.
Okay, the real John Smith? Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean,
Absolutely villain.
that's what he was writing at the beginning of this, second movie is, like, he's writing those stories about his time in America and the
Oh,
stories about
up
Pocahontas.
in the thing?
Yeah, so
And that's when all the
and then
knights
and
came
then
in?
he's faking his death. I mean, I don't know, I got bad vibes from
Kind of
him.
manipulative.
Yes,
Yeah.
and even, he's like, "Oh, come on, let's go on a new adventure," and she's like, "I just kinda wanna go home," and I like the fact that John Rolfe was like, yeah, he was trying to change her, but I felt like he wasn't trying to change her for his satisfaction. He was trying to
Change her for
he
peace.
he was trying to make peace. He knew that she needed to present a certain way to be accepted by the high society, by the king, in order to keep the peace.
In order to not have the Armada get to her people. No, you're
And
right, yeah.
and at the end of it, he did, accept her as she was, and he said he took off the royal whatever and was like, "Come on, let's go home." He's like, "I wanna change for you," and he's like, "I'll go into, like a native land, or well, not the land, but I'll go into your native land. I'll accept your customs and adopt your customs and assimilate to you.
Yeah,
And it seems like that's where it cut off, where he was about to do that. If there was a third movie, I feel like that's where we would have seen
the
a
child
happily ever
possibly.
after, and, then no.
My face again.
I know, it's my mouth actually just went dry thinking about it. I'm like, "Ah." John
Ah,
Ralph.
well, yeah, barf. Listen, this was a powerful episode, but a
Absolutely.
educational one, and I learned something, you learned something. I hope the viewers learned something, and, as history and more
Dig a
historians
little deeper, y'all.
dig a little deeper, I'm sure we'll continue to learn more and more about this brave woman's story.
Absolutely. Alright, well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for going down our crazy rabbit holes, and, hopefully you tune in again next week. What are we gonna be talking about next week?
I believe we might actually be having Alexis in.
We might be having our first
So
guest,
we'll be
yay!
having our first guest, and we are going to be talking about, I think, two different theories,
Mindset.
mindsets. We'll be using
Oh,
the
no.
films Inside Out 1 and 2, and also, I believe Princess and the Frog, and
I think we
another
mentioned
one,
Encanto?
and Encanto.
Mhm.
So if
It's gonna
anything, definitely
it's gonna
Inside
be
Out 1 and
good.
2. So definitely be good and also educational.
Very educational. So we hope you tune in. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all those other things. We're out there,
Insta,
y'all. Hmm?
Insta.
Oh, yeah, follow
Yeah.
me on Insta for some behind the scenes and brol.
Hmm. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. I hit both buttons at the same time.
It's kind of working.
I like it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you.
Okay. We out.
We out. Bye.